there are two ways for the web server, I'm sorry, for the browser to pass additional information to the web server. So the browser has passed the URL to the web server, which indicates what document wants to be fetched. But additional information can also be added to this URL. So for example, if you go to some sites like Google, we'll go to Google, for example, and I'm going to go to google.com. And I'm going to search for squid, because why not? And you'll notice that after search, there's a question mark and a bunch of key value pairs that are separated by ampersands. So once again, this is like a dictionary where you have a key Q and a value squid. So the query is squid, and then this is a separator, and SXRF is equal to this unicoded encoded thing, and then %3a is an escaped special character for URL, and then here's another ampersand, and then there's a value for source and a value for EI and a bunch of different values that basically this is a whole dictionary that's being glued into the URL. And then the web server has access to the URL that was sent to it. If I reload this thing here and go back up to the top, here was the original query. You see the full URL, all this stuff is in the URL. And so the web server can access all that information and can, for example, it knows that the query was squid, so it will return documents that match the keyword squid. And if I had searched for UPS, I would have gotten documents that matched UPS and so on. So when you include the additional information in the URL, that's called get method for reasons that aren't entirely clear, but that's how get method works. The information is sent as part of the URL. Now, other sites, you might notice that when you type values into a box, like I'm going to go to Bank of America and let's see how much of my personal information ends up in this thing. So I just clicked so the important bit here is that if you look in this URL, you won't actually see my username or password in it. So my username and password were not sent to the web server using get method, because if my password was in the URL and this thing got bookmarked, then anybody who had access to the bookmark or to the browser could easily discover my password just by looking in the URL. So how did the password and the username get sent to the web server if it wasn't using get method? Well, there's another method called post that involves including information in the body of the document. So what do I mean by body of the document? Well, if you look at like the request response, well, I'm just going to pull up any of these ones. So here's the request. Here's the header for the, actually, here's the request. Here's the header for the request. This is just showing me all the header stuff. There's actually a lot of header stuff in this. There's more stuff after this. So after the header, there's a blank line. And then if you look in here, there's going to be a content length as well. Content length 6043. This says that after the header, there's going to be a certain number of bytes where additional information is being passed to the web server, but not as part of the URL. So that's called post method. So post method URLs, I'm sorry, post method requests have information that's being sent to the web server in the body of the request. Get method URLs have only information that's in the URL. So you see up at the top in the request header, it's requesting post instead of get, because that means there's going to be information that's sent in the body of the message and not just in the URL.